welcome back everyone to CADI, the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute. I am your host, DJ, and we are here with Alexis, creator of Daughter of the Sea. Let's get into it. Alexis, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much for being here. This is actually the first time that I am here in person with the creator of a film, so I'm super excited to dive into this.
What an honor.
With you. What an honor, absolutely. So let's get into Daughter of the Sea. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, I would love to know a little synopsis of Daughter of the Sea for those of us that have not seen it yet.
Yes, Daughter of the Sea is about a young woman who experiences a spiritual awakening after the death of her grandfather. And this spiritual awakening involves the African orisha goddess Yemaya, who is known as the goddess of the sea.
And how did you arrive to the title of the film?
Traditionally, when you are called by an orisha, they say you're the son of Obatala, the daughter of Oshun. Instead of saying daughter of Yemaya, I thought, oh, the symbolism of water was really important to me. And Daughter of the Sea just had a ring to it.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, that's perfect. Hija del mar in Spanish. It's just, it flows, and I think it also sparks the imagination of, oh, what is that about? It's something that I want to see.
It definitely pulls you in, and I'm like all about titles and figuring out how it correlates to the whole of the film. So like that beautiful, you definitely hit that dead on.
Thank you.
Before we get into some of the clips that I want to show all of you, I would love to know, what was casting like? Like, how did you arrive at this beautiful cast of women that you have there?
Yeah, well, I knew as a Puerto Rican who has a multiracial family, I really wanted to make sure that all of the colors of the spectrum were represented in my film, because that is true to my life and true to my family, and I think true to a portrait of a Puerto Rican family. And we talk about like erasure and representation. I didn't want to erase our blackness, which I think has happened a lot. You know, you turn on any of the main channels, Telemundo, Univision, and it's always going to be like a white presenting Latina family on screen. And so for me, that was really important. The people that we cast were reminiscent of my own primas, my cousins. And I also wanted to cast on the island. I wanted to get actresses and actors that were islanders who could bring an authentic representation of the Boricua on the island and the way that they speak. That being said, the main character, I wanted to be of the diaspora that lived outside of the island, because I wanted to create this sense of coming home and reintroducing herself to the culture, coming back to her family, and also for that character to represent someone who was an outsider coming in, or it's like an inside outsider almost, which has been my experience growing up here in the States and going back to the island. My grandparents had a farm where we shot. They've always had that piece of land. I mean, since my childhood, they moved back to Puerto Rico in the 90s, and every summer I would spend visiting them on this land. And so that was my experience coming back. I would have cousins that were on the island, and they had their amazing Spanish, and I would, you know, be trying with mine, and so my accent is good, but it's not like theirs, and the way that their facility with the language. And so yeah, this character was kind of an avatar for myself in a lot of ways. And I think I over-answered this question.
No, you did amazing. No, you.
I was like, wait, you just asked about casting. And, but I can speak specifically about casting Princess Nokia. I would say there were so many miracles that happened in the process of creating this film. And she was one of the miracles. I wrote the script in January, and she started following me on Instagram randomly. I'm like, I have less than 10,000 followers. I'm not like this known person. And then when she started following me, it was right when we were thinking about casting and who that main character would be. And I asked my producer, I'm like, should I reach out to her? Should I slip into her DMs? And she's like, absolutely. Yes. And I didn't even think of her as like, you know, my ideal world, this would be the character. But I'd actually put a lot of references from her music video, Brujas, into my treatment. So it was really crazy the way it came together, in that I knew that Yemaya was moving through our project and opening doors and, you know, creating waves for us to ride together. And so, yeah, when she appeared, it was a Thursday. She started following me. I sent her a DM on Friday. She gave me her email. She read the script over the weekend.
Yes.
And on Monday we were FaceTiming, and I asked her, would you like to be a part of this project? Would you consider playing the lead in this film? And she said, yes. And she said, when I read the script the first time, I cried. I read it 7 more times and I cried, and I prayed on it, and I said, I really want to be a part of this project. So that was like a beautiful kind of exchange and something organic that came out of like this casting process. Yeah,
wow. I call that DT, divine timing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That's incredible. And you moved quickly. Yeah, take a snatch.
Keep that. Use that.
Give. That's incredible. Wow. I love that. I would love to know, what was the most fun and challenging parts of creating this film?
The most fun part was how quickly everything moved, but that was also the most challenging part.
I can imagine.
I also had been wanting to go to Puerto Rico and make something on the island. I'd been talking about it for years, and to actually have like, I received a grant, or I was in a fellowship through LALIF, sponsored by Netflix, called the Inclusion Fellowship, and they gave me $20K as financing for the film. And when I had that seed funding to actually get down there, I was like, all right, we're taking off, we're gonna do this. That being said, we were working under a really tight, accelerated timeline. We got the grant I found out in December, had to turn in the script in January, and then had to complete the film for it to premiere in June at the LA Latino International Film Festival. And so that timeline it was helpful in that it kept everyone moving and there was no like breaks, but it was also really challenging. Yeah.
So you are no stranger to working effectively under pressure.
Yeah. I was like, man, that's when I work my best. Yeah. Give me a deadline.
That's incredible. I love that. Well, now let's get into some of those clips that I want to show everyone. Yeah. All right, let's do it. So in this opening clip, right, immediately we are shown this woman in this black headdress. We see the skulls. I feel like it lets us know what type of world we're getting into, right? The following shots, we see this man in all white. We get a close-up of the saint on his chain. Then we see the woman carry him on a white horse back into the forest. What I would love to know is, what were your intentions on selecting this scene as your opener?
I wanted to start with something a little bit surreal, because I knew that this film was going to play with surrealism in that we were talking about the spiritual world, the spirit world that is intangible. I mean, it's not something that we have stuck in reality. So I wanted the audience to just be kind of like getting into the headspace of, oh, this film isn't, there's some magical things about this film. And that figure in black was supposed to represent the spirit of death, and we infused some of both Afro and Taino symbols into that costume to kind of represent the island and an imagination of what the spirit of death could potentially look like. And so, in a way, I think for me, this scene was really a ceremony of being carried over into the other world, but that other world still exists on the same plane in which we live.
That scene is very haunting in a peaceful way. Like, you did a beautiful job with capturing everything that you literally just spoke about, because it was so easy to receive that feeling and that message from that scene. Why did you choose to represent the grandfather's transition in the spiritual format instead of showing what happened to him in the mortal plane, if you will, which I love that choice. But what was your intention behind that?
Yeah, well, speaking to that, being, he becomes a ghost in the film, and I thought that we should introduce him in his spirit form. I think of like my own grandfather, who this character is based on. At the end of his life, he was deteriorated because he was an elderly man, and he had an illness that, took away the essence and the memory of how we, knew him in life. And so I think that portraying the old man as able to walk and carry himself and be in a crisp white outfit, I thought, and portray him with dignity, that was really important to me, because I was like, oh, I want this character. Because I think when you transition too, it's like your spirit is leaving your body, but that higher sense of self will be the thing that is essentially leaving, and that is your soul. And I think that I wanted that to be intact. And also I think of like, when you go to take a portrait, you're presenting your best self. And so I thought, oh, when he's being, taken away by death, he's being his, best, most dignified self.
That's amazing. I love that you touch on this word dignified, because that image was very much conveyed to us, right? And what I love about your film that is different from a lot of other media is the fact that in other forms of media, when they convey scenes like this, there's always this fight against death, right? There's always this like, oh, I'm not ready to go yet, I don't want to, or like it's a struggle. But this grandfather, when death stretched out her hand, he stretched out his and took it. Yeah. And it was a very peaceful walk, and it was very dignified. So I love that you touched upon that. That's amazing. Let's get into our next clip.
Hey everyone. Hola, Lela. Bendición.
Dios te bendiga, mija.
Hi, Mom.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, prima. Por fin te despiertas.
Lo sueño.
¿Quieres café?
Ay, sí. Yo quiero también, gracias. ¿Cómo dormiste?
I haven't slept so good in weeks.
Se dice que las personas que no duermen bien es porque tienen un
guilty conscience.
Se dice guilty conscience.
Yeah, guilty conscience.
Y Laida, déjala quieta, bendito, acaba de llegar.
Bueno, eso dice la gente, no lo digo yo.
El sueño.
Entonces, le contábamos a Lela nuestros sueños y me toca a mí.
Sí, vamos. Dale, Mónica.
En mi sueño, todas estábamos aquí. Hasta Janice estaba... Vestíamos ropa blanca y cavábamos la tierra.
¿Cómo así? ¿O así con los
Con la boda.
No sabía qué estábamos buscando, pero me preocupaba. ¿Cómo vamos a lavar nuestra ropa?
¿Cómo vamos a lavar la ropa?
Eso es importante, ¿verdad?
Wow, qué dramática.
Prioridades.
Estaba preocupada que pasamos por un party después de ahí.
Sí, vamos por un party, vamos con la ropa sucia. ¿Y qué pasó?
Jamás en la vida. Eso era un mal sueño, ¿verdad, abuela?
No, mija, no. Eso no es ningún mal sueño. Al contrario. Fíjate, el bregar en la tierra con las manos, eso es algo bueno. Tiene que ver con la intuición y el poder sentir los sentimientos de las personas que están a tu alrededor.
Cínica.
Llámame Walter.
Mucho amor.
Mira, Janice, ¿y tú? ¿Qué soñaste, mija? ¿Qué soñaste?
I've been having this dream where I'm floating in the ocean and it feels like I'm being held, like when mommy used to hold me. I didn't feel afraid. I felt happy.
Qué sueño más hermoso y muy importante, Janice. She was holding you.
So this is the big family scene. The colors are bright and vivid. The light coming in is beautiful. And here we have the girls reporting their dreams to Abuela, right? Almost as if they've come before a dream oracle. And she is indeed interpreting these dreams. This has given me Encanto for a few reasons. Between the grandmother's apparent gift of dream reading and her telling the other women at the table that she can tune into people's emotions, to grandpa being referenced as a healer, it seems like this family is spiritually and supernaturally gifted. And also the representation of skin tone in this family is rich, which you have already touched on a little bit. So within this Boricua family, I love what you did by capturing your authentic family experience, because for me, growing up, I only ever saw and recognized Puerto Ricans that were like white passing and like very pale. So it wasn't until I got older and realized that I had dark-skinned friends that were Puerto Rican and brown family members that were also Puerto Rican, I'm Costa Rican, that I realized that, wow, there's a spectrum of Puerto Ricans, you know what I mean? And I think for other people younger and my age and older, seeing this film, the representation is so important, because it's like, this is real, this exists, you know? Can you discuss the intersections of representation that this one scene is bringing in alone, and why it was important for you to set things up this way, from the very matriarchal table setting to the ethnicity and the color to the varying gifts and whatever else you feel privy to discuss? I'm throwing a lot at you. It's like
These are good questions. So yeah, I described this earlier, but it was really important to me to portray a multiracial version of the Puerto Rican family, because it's true to my life, and it's true to many Puerto Ricans on the island. It's like you have family members every color of the spectrum, and we haven't seen that ever, basically. So that was really exciting to me. And also, I wanted for the darker skin characters to have a voice and to have lines in this, and not just be kind of like, you know, there for show, which can happen, you know, not intentionally, but sometimes it's what just, you know, happens because we are conditioned to not think critically about who is speaking and who has the opportunity to be known as a main or supporting character. So that was really, really important to me. And then as far as I think like this film is about the divine feminine, and there's also I was thinking a lot about having a conversation that didn't involve men, or let it be something that is actually really true to like how me and my cousins interact with my own grandmother. And that was the dream interpretation. Is something that my own grandmother does, and it's like she'll pick some symbol from within the dream and tell us what that means. And I think it was a fun conversation. It's like one of the lighthearted moments in the film. It's like they're having fun, and you kind of get a sense of like, the chaos, and also like the familial ties. Like one of the cousins is kind of giving the other cousin that just arrived, she's like poking her, giving her grief, and I just had a lot of fun with that scene, and but also it like it serves the story in that we're talking about magic, and we're talking about intuition, and we're talking about things that inform our reality. And I really do believe that dreams can be premonitions. They can be that we should be thinking critically about our dreams, because sometimes there's information in those dreams that can serve us in our, what's it called, waking life.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. And this scene, like you said, does an incredible job of bringing some of the lighthearted feeling to this film. Not that it feels dark at all, but like just that this scene is very bright, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like down to the lighting and the colors, and just like that family, it's breakfast, like, you know what I mean? So it's a very jovial scene, and it is very fun. I think it's one of my favorite scenes also, you know what I mean? It's like, like getting everybody together and just seeing the difference in dynamics. And thank you for taking that responsibility of making those darker skinned characters have a voice, you know what I mean? Because like you said, it is important, and we are conditioned to, again, not on purpose, but we're just conditioned to sometimes have them just be in the background. So thank you for making sure that they did speak. I think that's really important. Let's dive into our next clip.
Mi niña, pero si no han pasado 24 horas y ya tú estás haciendo laundry aquí.
Mom, I get super anxious if I'm not moving.
Siempre como tu abuelo. Always moving around. Me hubiera gustado que estuvieras aquí antes. Me hace mucha falta.
I wish I could have come sooner too. I've been really afraid of what it would feel like to come back home and will not be here.
¿Sabías que tu abuelo era babalao?
No.
Él nunca le decía esas cosas a nadie. Se quedaba con eso ahí. Una vez yo le pregunté y me dijo, "It doesn't matter what I believe, it matters what you believe." Él creía que esa conexión con los seres espirituales era lo que nos ayudaba en los momentos más difíciles. He was a healer.
I never got to say goodbye to him, Mom. And I feel so lost without him. I will always call him when I felt like this.
I know. Don't let that be.
Okay, so this is the conversation with Mommy, right? We get more insight on who Grandpa was in this scene, as well as Yanis's relationship with him. Something that stuck out to me, especially being someone who's experienced and grieved loss, is when Mommy tells Yanis that she wishes she would have come sooner, and Yanis replies that she was afraid to come back home and Abuelo not be there. Feeling the spiritual weight of a lack of a physical presence when an energy that populated a space or your life is no longer there is a huge roadblock. Can you touch a little bit more on this element of Yanis's grief and why you included it in the story?
Yeah, I think when life events happen, like a death in the family, the passing of someone important to you, it's a moment of self-reflection, but it's also a moment of change and deep change. Like nothing is ever the same. The day is different because that person is no longer here. And so I used that, the death of her grandfather, as a catalyst to her spiritual awakening, in that she was afraid to come back, but she's been having this dream about the ocean and being held in the ocean. And I think that the reason she didn't come back right away was an experience a lot of us had during the pandemic of not being able to travel to a funeral or be there present to grieve together. And I was thinking a lot about what kind of impact that has on a person, the delayed grief. And for the people that were there, they were able to grieve together and got through it together. But then there's this character who wasn't able to come back. And what was that experience for her? And then I think also when you don't process your grief, there is another thing that happens internally that changes people. And so I think ultimately, like, the catharsis that happens in the end of her being held, I think is the payoff is greater because of this delay. And also, I think it speaks to the process of an awakening too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, yes, you can have something that changes you between one day and the next, but sometimes, I think especially when we talk about spirituality, it's a process of change, and it takes time and discovery, and it takes advice, and it takes spiritual advisors. And so, yeah, that was, I think this scene kind of establishes Abuelo's connection to the spirit world that she wasn't really aware of. But now she's having these premonitions since his death, and she doesn't understand what these images mean, except that her grandmother gave her an interpretation of her dream that was surprising to her. And I think she's also holding a lot inside that, and not expressing herself, and not feeling the freedom to express herself. And this conversation with Mommy was the first time that she was actually admitting how much she's been struggling.
You know what's so incredible? This film is just like so well done. So you always have, of course, because like I'm just blown away in my head, because you always have the intention of the artist, right? And then the perception of the consumer. But literally word for word, the next thing that I was gonna ask you was, does this scene serve as a catalyst to her being called by Yemaya? And like literally you have achieved your goals in each scene so far within like my own perceptions of them and my like questioning. So just like amazing job, like once again. And like I just can't wait for this film to like get out into like the world so that everybody can see it, because it's such a gift. Like walking, it's not about me, but it is such a gift. Like walking away from it, I was just like, somebody else knows and like feels this way, because like I got a little group of friends and we've been going through all this stuff, you know what I mean? And just like I felt seen by the film. So thank you very, very much. Let's get into our next clip.
Go to the altar and bring me 7 pennies and 7 flowers from the garden. Siempre tiene que ser 7 para la diosa del mar. I like to think of these as little barcos de gracia that will take our prayers to the ocean. You see how I'm doing this? Now you do it.
La misma manera.
Sí. This is the right time for you and Yemaya. Ella lo sabe porque para ella el cambio es verdad. Y sabiendo esto ha sido medicina para mí. No sé qué significa esta idea para ti, mija. Tienes que pensarlo. Pero piénsalo bien. Es nuestra herencia, Janice. Tú tienes esa bendición. Yemaya, la diosa del mar, puede recibir y absorber todas tus emociones y a cambio darte felicidad y esperanza. Siempre llama a sus hijos. If you open your eyes, your ears, and listen. Tu abuelo lo sabía. Él lo dijo antes de morir que Yemaya te llamaría. Toma, esto te pertenece. Ahora vamos a prender esta vela para abrir el camino, iniciar la conexión. Luego tienes que ir donde Yemaya a llevarle esta ofrenda.
So here we have the ritual. Along with Yanis, we are taught how to prepare an offering for Yemaya. And I thought that this scene was absolutely fascinating for a few reasons. Once again, I have a few friends that are also actually daughters of Yemaya, and I always told them that although I don't feel a call from any of the orishas, there are other deities that have invited me in. One who is also of water, this ancient Sumerian goddess who revealed herself to me in my sleep and, gave me her name and all these things. So I know that normally these practices are gate-kept, and I was very shocked to see you honor and privilege us with showcasing a Yemaya offering. 1, thank you. 2, what gave you the goal? Because that was I just feel like powerful thing to do, an image to see on screen. What gave you just like that audacity to include that within the film?
Yeah. Well, I think that our spiritual, our accessibility to this information opens the door to other people who are searching. And I think that I was thinking a lot about the medicine I wanted to put out in the world with this film. And I was like, for me, my connection to the spirit, to Yemaya, it's been a gift. And it's also been a spiritual inheritance that I've been honored to know. And I was wondering and thinking, why not share this? And I was being called to share it too. Like I had lit a candle last September 7th, which was Yemaya's feast day. And it was just to honor her. And that night, this whole story flowed through me, the story that's in the film. And in October, there was an opportunity to apply for a grant, and I sent this story in because I had it just sitting there. And then I got the grant to make the film. And it's just kind of like all of these miracles have flowed forth because I really do believe that there is a divine power telling me that or using me as a tool to say that the world needs this information. We're coming out of a time of deep grief, and that the pandemic, created a lot of loss, and people not necessarily having the tools to deal with that loss. And I feel like this film offers some tools. It offers the medicine of healing, a medicine of moving through change by tapping into this spiritual inheritance that I call it an inheritance because knowledge of the orishas was brought to the Americas through our African ancestors who were brought to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade. And they were forced to convert to Christianity, but they brought their gods and goddesses with them and would hide this religion within these Catholic saints or within these Christian these icons. And that's why there is still Christian iconography within the film, like the image of San Lázaro, which is the medal that the grandfather wears. That's a saint who is known as someone who was reborn, who died and came back to life. He's also a protector of travelers, and that chain that's portrayed is actually my grandfather's chain that my brother inherited from him. So this film is a lot about inheritance, and I've said this in the Q&A after showing this film to a couple audiences, and it's like, we as children of the diaspora, children of the African diaspora specifically, we don't have a material inheritance other than the way that we physically present in the world. But we do have access to a spiritual inheritance. And that's what this film is about. It's about introducing people to Yemaya, who is this beautiful, powerful goddess that we all have access to. And she is the goddess known to carry you through change. It's like people go to the ocean because it's healing. They love the sound. They love to dip themselves. Puerto Ricans, we go on Dia de San Juan, which is in the summer, and we go in and we dip ourselves, and it's like it's a ritual that is really important to us for reasons that we don't even understand. And it's like, well, there's this goddess who's associated with the sea, and she's like so well known. She's the history too of her is it's said that she followed her children across the sea when they were stolen from their lands. And so I think that just resonates so much with me, especially when you read about like what are her like characteristics and what are her. It's like she's the goddess of change. She's the mother of all. She's healer, waters, and it's just like all of these things that I feel like the world really needed now. And I was just a tool for telling the story.
Thank you so much, because I walked away feeling gifted. I walked away feeling medicated, like I healed. You know what I mean? Like watching the film, and it just reminded me of like I went on a birthday trip to Curaçao. I took 15 friends with me, and on one night underneath the strawberry moon, on the night of my actual birthday, none of us planned this, but we all ended up at the same part of the ocean. And we were just crying and bathing, and it was such a release. It was so healing. It was just so magical. And like watching this film brought back those memories, because it was like, yes, this was this. You know, a lot of us on the trip know about Yemaya, so like, of course we were, like offering and just doing all these things, but it was just like, wow. It was just really about being seen and the thank you of like opening that gate, because something that felt so like nobody can see this, you know what I mean? Like I felt invited, and it was very welcoming. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think also because our ancestors had to hide the worship of the orishas from the public, the way that this religion or this practice exists in the world is very much still under the cover of it's clandestine, and it's thanks to Instagram and stuff where people are more open and people are connecting across borders and experiences. And however, it had to be hidden and for reasons of like actual survival. And so I think this film was very much about creating accessibility to this information and this knowledge. And I worked with my cousin Selena. She's a folklorist. She ended up being an executive producer on the film, but she's studied rituals and she studied this and for many years. And so I tapped her to help me create a ritual in this film that would be accurate to, the actual process of making an offering for Yemaya. I wanted to make sure that we were presenting something for the world that was really accurate and not just, we made it up because it's a film. It's like, no, this is a tool for people. This is a tool that we're, paying forward for any audience any person who has an opportunity or interest to watch the film.
Thank you. So you let us know how you arrived at telling the story, right? It was the one night you lit the candle, it flowed through you. You also told us about who or what the orishas are. Thank you very much for that. And the figure at the beginning of this film is not an orisha. No. It is a spirit of death that's a little bit of the fiction that you concocted yourself and created this beautiful character, which thank you so much again for that, because stunning opening once again, right? What I would love to know is, are you a daughter of the sea?
Absolutely. I've always been, in my household, in my being raised from childhood, Yemaya has always been in my mother's house, in my grandmother's house, and she's in my house now too. And I believe that I have multiple orishas that that I pay homage to. But Yemaya is the mother, and whenever I go to the ocean, I pay my respects to her. I keep a little bit of ocean water at my house that I put on my altar, And so there is definitely, I definitely honor her in my day-to-day life.
That's beautiful. So I was mentioning the beautiful figure that we open up with, right? We also end with a beautiful figure. You actually show us Yemaya. Can you, and I know that we also spoke a little bit about the casting, but can you go behind the intention of casting Yemaya with who you did?
Yes, so Yemaya is played by the beautiful Nyambi Sala of Oshun, the group Oshun. She's also a daughter of Oshun. But it was really important to me to cast a Black woman in the role of Yemaya because so many images of Yemaya have been Eurocentric, whitewashed, like they've done to other religious icons. And so I wanted to create a new image of Yemaya and potentially one that was more accurate to the way that our ancestors saw her. And so, yes, I think also I was really interested in the idea of Afrofuturism and creating the costume that Yemaya is presented in, and using fabric that looks like the ocean and kind of just floats in the air, and making sure that there are like all of the details. We had Lady Soulfly do the nails.
Those nails? I was like, okay, come on, Yemaya, yes!
So she had amazing nails, and the costume was created by this Puerto Rican costume designer or artist, his name is Jose Ortiz Pagan, and it was so beautiful to collaborate too with all of these Puerto Rican artists who have known about Yemaya, were touched by her, and so this process really flowed beautifully, and I'm really proud of the fact that we achieved this vision, you know, that this film came to me as a vision, and then what it became was even better than the vision that I had. And so many of the objectives that I had in mind, we were actually able to achieve. And so, yeah, this new vision of Yemaya, I feel that we did her justice in a way that I feel really excited to share with the world.
This is literal magic that you've performed. You know, you took something that was just like just little thoughts in your head, and now it is here, it is out, it has become palpable, and it is a pleasure and a joy to watch.
Thank you.
What would you want viewers of this film to walk away with?
I want people to know that magic is real. And that it exists in our everyday life, and that maybe while you can't see it, this film creates a reality that it exists, or it creates an interpretation of its existence that I feel is something that our audience should challenge their imaginations and aspire towards. And so I feel like it's a good place to escape to. And that was something that I really wanted to do as well, is like create something that people feel happy to be a part of and happy to live in for a few minutes. Because the world is hard and it can be really dark, but there's still a lot of beauty and there's still a lot of magic, and we all have access to it.
And on that note, I don't know about y'all, but I feel spiritually awakened. I cannot wait for you all to see Daughter of the Sea. Y'all, we are walking on two planes, all right? The unseen and the seen. Y'all better get into it. Alexis, thank you so much for joining me here today. My first in-person creator.
I'm so honored.
This was amazing. This was a privilege for me. I wish you nothing but all of the success in the world on this film, and everything that you touch and everything that you do. And I hope to see you again and talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you.